Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis brought to you by LawSeco. The articles that we'll be covering for today in our newspaper analysis on 28 July 2020 are as follows. The first article, this is from The Hindu. It's called Needed, a Map for India's Foreign Policy. Here we will analyze how India's foreign policy status has changed especially during this pandemic, and we will see what this article talks about. The second article is called The Majority Cannot Afford a Balanced Diet. Here there's a report that has recently been released which has stated that a lot of people, majority of the people, especially in India, cannot afford a balanced diet, and we will look at it and what the article says. The third article is called When She Marries. This is from the Indian Express. This basically talks about maternal health, and we will discuss in detail what all are the issues that are related to it. And then lastly, news and flash section, which is LawSeco's initiative, and here we discuss short newspaper pieces which are important from your preliminary point of view. Before that, a short introduction to LawSeco's test prep material. Here, if you go on our website, there are multiple courses that you can avail, which will definitely help in your preparation for competitive exams and otherwise as well. We have the lot of courses for judiciary test prep. Before joining the course, if you wish, you can also get a free study material by clicking on the download button. Then there are multiple other courses for CLAT exam, for All India Bar exam. There is a judgment writing course that you can avail, and there's also an upcoming SEBI Grade A exam, a course for that also. So please go on our website and make use of this wonderful opportunity that we are providing to you. Coming back to the newspaper analysis, the MCQ for today is, which of the following country does not share a border with India? Nepal, Bangladesh, Iran, Bhutan. You can find the correct answer, and you can mention in the comment box below what you think the correct answer is. The descriptive question for today is, historically, women have been subjected to various forms of discriminations. Now that globally women's rights have gained ground, discuss the maternity-related issues faced by women in India, analyze the laws and policies concerning it, and suggest ways in which it can be improved. You can write a short descriptive answer on the same, and you can mention that in the comment box, and people from LawSeco community will give you score on that. Coming back to the first article for today, which talks about India's foreign policy. Now, why we are talking about India's foreign policy right now? So, until now, India was seen as a natural rising power in South Asia and Indian Ocean region, and it appeared that it had a very good relation and very good ties with the neighboring countries. For example, if you look at India's relations with its neighboring countries, it had a historic and cultural tie with Nepal. India and Nepal historically have been very good friends. Then it enjoyed a certain sort of goodwill with Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and a lot of practices and meetings used to take place between these two countries. With China also, it had a certain kind of cooperative relationships. There were not problems arising between India and China until a few years back, or until even 1 or 2 years back. Then India was a member of SAARC, that is the South Asian countries cooperation, and it was assumed to be sort of a de facto leader for this organization. Now, this was a situation in which India's foreign policy was prevailing, and India had good relations in Southern Asian region as well as Indian Ocean region. But now, if we look at the foreign policy, if we analyze the foreign policy situation of India, India is facing its gravest national security crisis in the last 20 years, and issues with majority of its neighboring countries, especially China. Now, if you look at the current situation, as the article mentioned, as the slides mentioned, if we analyze one by one India's relations with its neighboring countries, we all know that India and China are facing border issues along the LAC, that is line of actual control. We have covered it thoroughly in our previous videos. You can refer to them. Then Nepal and India are also, there's a certain hostility between Nepal and India concerning certain regions, which includes Lipu Lake region. This also we have covered in our previous videos. Then India's relation with Sri Lanka is also dwindling since Sri Lanka is tilting towards China. Now, Sri Lanka is tilting towards China, and India and China have problems. So definitely, by consequence, India and Sri Lanka also have problems. So this is the type of issue that we all are facing right now, that India as a country is facing right now, where even the neighboring countries, we don't have a friendly relation with our neighboring countries because of border issues or some other issues. And in this respect, because our relations with the countries in the South Asian region and Indian Ocean region is facing such a large problem, and the situation was different until now, there is a need to analyze India's foreign policy. What this type of situation is doing for India is that it's leading to a decline of smart power of India. Smart power, or we can call it soft power, also. If you read international relations, there's something called soft power, that countries have soft power, which arises from diplomacy. Now, because of these issues with the neighboring countries, India is declining in its smart power. Now let's see what are the reasons for current downturn. The first reason that we can talk about is the US line. Now, if we talk about it, India and US have shown a strong relationship in the past few months, in the last 1 year especially. US President Mr. Donald Trump also visited our country, which was a big achievement for India. It certainly led to strengthening of the relationship between these two countries. Now, but one disadvantage that India is facing because of its tilt towards the United States is that its relationship with other countries is declining. So until now, or even officially, India's policy is towards multilateralism. That is, India shows inclination towards multiple countries. It is officially, it is not only US centric or Russia centric or China centric. It is a multilateral policy that India proposes to have. However, by inclining towards US, there is a dent on that multilateralism policy that India seeks to have. For example, you can look at India's relation with Iran. Now, you all must have heard that India and Iran had a deal on Chabahar port, which was supposed to be built on Iran and which was supposed to provide a very strategic path to India to enter into certain Asian regions. Now, in the United Nations, a vote happened, and because of India's tilt towards the United States, India voted against Iran. Now, if India votes against Iran in a big institute, a big meeting such as the United Nations, definitely Iran will have something against India, which is exactly what happened, and which is why certain problems arose between India and Iran on the matters of building of Chabahar port. And we can blame this, or if we have to analyze this relation between India and Iran, we can say that this happened because India is tilting towards US. The second reason that we come to is domestic politics. Now, we all know that the current ruling party has taken certain very strong policy decisions, which a part of population of India has supported, and a part of population of India has very adamantly refused to accept. And this is what happens when a country takes strong decisions. So this has happened in case of India. But apart from people of India supporting or not supporting these decisions, there has been a certain consequence that even the neighboring countries have determined by passing of these domestic decisions. For example, if we take the passing of Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. Now, we all have witnessed the large-scale protests that happened throughout India, whether you talk about the southernmost regions, whether you talk about Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Or you talk about Delhi. In Delhi, there was a massive scale of protests that were happening because of the Citizenship Amendment Act. So we saw that people of India, or a certain segment of people of India, were opposing these amendments. However, even the neighboring countries had an issue with it. So we know that if you analyze Citizenship Amendment Act, or even the people who were opposing the act, they had a grievance that Muslim population has been left out of, or have been deprived of certain benefits which were given to other people of other religion under this amendment. Now, Muslims in countries like Bangladesh, they also oppose this Amendment Act because of the same reason, that it is discriminating, or it is slightly discriminating against the Muslim population. Now, because Muslims in these countries were against the passage of this act, that is, if you take example of Bangladesh, Muslims in Bangladesh were against the passing of this act. Therefore, relations between Bangladesh and India also declined. A dent was put on the relation between Bangladesh and India. If you talk about another act or another policy decision of India recently, which was the abrogation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir, we saw that countries like Pakistan and even China were very strongly against this decision of India, saying that autonomy of the people of Jammu and Kashmir has been taken away because of this decision. Now, it is true that other countries should not interfere in India's policy decisions, but there's no binding force through which we can say that. And it is really the decision of these other countries on what perspective they form of India. So, if we had to analyze India's foreign policy, these domestic politics of India have definitely played a role in the current situation, the current national security crisis that we are facing today. The third and the last ground reason that we can talk about is hubris of excessive pride or self-confidence. So the author here says that there have been countries like Soviet Union or China who waited to establish standing before declaring their power. That means that these countries had accumulated power before declaring their power. However, in case of India, the situation is different. India has been recently at the forefront of showing its power. For example, you can take India's encounter with Nepal, where a border dispute of a particular area arose. Now, India was very at the forefront for showing its power and for showing that it has the power to occupy that area, or to take the area which it already has, or to put its claim forward for that particular area. Now, this is the type of excessive pride or self-confidence that the author warns us against. He says that by showing this excessive pride or self-confidence, uh, foreign relations cannot be acquired, or good foreign relations cannot be formed. And these will be the reasons because of the further downturn that India is facing right now. The second article that we are going to talk about today is the Indian poverty and balanced diet. So why this is in news is because a report was recently given by, so this is called the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2020. This is the report, it's called SOPI 2020 in short. Now this report is given by, it is passed by Food and Agricultural Organization. It's an international organization in partnership with United Nations. Therefore, it's an important report. Now this report included a detailed analysis of cost and affordability of healthy diets around the world, which showed that hundreds of millions of people in India above the international poverty line of $1.9 purchasing power parity per person per day cannot afford a healthy or nutritious diet. So this is what the report says, that there are so many people in India who are, even though they're above the international poverty line, they cannot afford a healthy or nutritious diet. So let's see what a healthy or nutritious diet is. The report analyzes in detail. They categorizes diets into three types of diets, and they say, and then in detail they analyze the cost of these three types of diets and the affordability of these three types of diets. So what are these types of diets? So first type of diet is basic energy sufficiency. It meets only the calorie intake by consuming the cheapest starchy cereal available. So for example, your rice and wheat, these are the starchy grains which provide you energy, or which, as you say, calorie intake. It provides you sufficient calorie to go through the day. It is the most basic energy diet, and it is also the cheapest form of diet that you can take avail of. Now, this costs $1.9 per day, which is also the international poverty line amount. International poverty line amount is $1.9 per day, and cost of this basic energy sufficient diet is also $1.9 per day. Now, the report also saw this in terms of affordability by South Asians. So it says that this diet is affordable by South Asian. If you look at various government policies that have been passed, so these starchy cereals like rice and wheat, they have been provided by our governments at a very minimal price to the poor, to the people below poverty line, etc. Now, the second type of diet that this report talks about is called nutrient diet, nutrient adequate. This meets the required calorie and stipulated requirement of 23 macro and micronutrients. Now, what are macro and micronutrients? Nutrition like protein, fats, etc. Mixture of all these, and micronutrients like iron, magnesium, zinc. All these nutrients are 23 macro and micronutrients are fulfilled by this nutrient adequate diet. The cost of this diet is $2.12 per day. Now, if you look at it from the South Asians' affordability point of view, this is not affordable by 18% of South Asians. The last and the best form of diet that this report prescribes is called a healthy diet. This meets the calorie norm, macro, micronutrients, and consumption of diverse diet. So what happens in this case of diet is from different food groups, the food item is picked up. So in nutrient adequate diet, the cheapest food item from different food groups is picked up. On the other hand, in a healthy diet, various type of food items from different food groups are picked up. The cost of this diet is $4.07 per day. This diet is not affordable by 58% of the South Asians. Now, this is where the issue arises. So the international poverty line, according to the international poverty line, the purchasing power parity is $1.9 per day, right, per person per day. However, even a healthy diet or even a nutrient adequate diet cannot be afforded by if a person is given the if you look at the standard of international poverty line. So these two are unaffordable in terms of international poverty line. The article looks at it from the point of Indian poverty line. So in case of Indian poverty line, as defined by the Tendulkar Committee, the amount is rupees 33 per day for urban poor and rupees 27 per day for rural poor. Now, if you look at this amount, this is less than the amount as prescribed by the international poverty line. So this won't constitute even $1 per day, and therefore, what we come to is the per day cost corresponds to less than $1 per day. Therefore, we can draw two conclusions. Firstly, with the IPL lower than international norm, that is Indian poverty line, the amount of Indian poverty line, these two amounts, less than the international norm, Indian poor cannot even afford a nutrient adequate diet. So even if we provide the minimum amount to an Indian poor, we provide rupees 33 per day, or we would provide rupees 27 per day for the poor, they cannot afford a nutrient adequate diet or a healthy diet. Even people with 2 times income than international poverty line cannot afford a healthy diet. So since international poverty line, the amount was $1.9 per day. Here, even if it's twice the income, healthy diet cannot be obtained. Now, these are very drastic numbers that we are talking about. So this is not something unexpected, but they're still drastic numbers. If you look at our day-to-day diet, we can assume that if you provide a person only rupees 33 per day, the food item for the whole day will not be attained. Leave aside a healthy diet or even a nutrition sufficient diet. Even a very basic minimum diet will hardly be attainable if you provide only rupees 33 per day or rupees 27 per day. and which is what the problem faced by India currently in terms of its nutrition sufficiency is that in the government schemes we provide very minimal amount to the poor people so that they can get adequate diet. And here we are only talking about adequate diet, not a balanced diet or not a healthy diet. So even an adequate diet is unaffordable by the Indian poor. Now we have schemes like Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, where till November 2020, certain forms of legumes, rice, grain are provided free of cost to the Indian poor. However, even these schemes are inadequate to address massive malnutrition. Here we are not just talking about hunger, we're talking about malnutrition because an adequate healthy diet, which is a mixture of legumes, which is a mixture of fat, protein, other micronutrition, etc., that is not sufficiently provided even by these government schemes. And this is what the policy makers in terms of Indian nutrition have to look into to provide a balanced diet to the Indian poor. Coming back to our last article for today, that is women's health in India. Now, if we look at the data, it says India's maternal mortality ratio has improved from 556 in 1990 to 122 in 2020. So, maternal mortality ratio, as you all know, is the number of deaths that happen during maternity. So, when women die during the maternity, it's called maternal mortality, and which was the data shows that it was 556 in 1990 and it is 122 in 2020. Similarly, child marriage has decreased from 58% around 1970 to 80 to 21% in 2015 to 16. So this is a significant decline, and this also is a cause of celebration that India as a country, has been competent enough to reduce its maternal mortality as well as child marriage. However, we cannot just celebrate it as yet because there are other indices that we need to look at to actually determine women's health in India. So, intrauterine growth restrictions, poor birth outcome for gestational age, and low birth weight remain a grave concern even now. There's a certain data given in the article which says 3 out of 10 children being below low birth weight, and neonatal mortality rate of 23 is there in India. So what is intrauterine growth restriction? It's a particular stage of growth of the fetus inside the womb of a woman, inside the womb of the mother, which is called intrauterine growth. And women in India, particularly women from poor strata of the society, face this issue with intrauterine growth. Then there is also poor birth outcome for gestational age, and there's low birth weight. Children born, the babies born are below the average weight that they should be, and which is also one facet of women's health that we are concerned with in India, and we need to improve and work upon. Now, let's see what are the issues why we face this problem, why we are facing this grave concern currently. So, poor education is one of the causes because women, even though if you look at urban areas, parents have been keen to provide education to their girls. If you go into rural areas, especially of the backward states or the remoter regions, if you go at the poor areas, women have not been equally given equal opportunity of education. Now, when women don't study or when women are not given equal opportunity for education, what families do is they marry them early. So 44.7% of the women have no education and married before 18%. This is the data which shows that these percent of women without any education married before 18 years of age. So if girls are not educated, something has to be done with them, which is the mentality of the society, and they are married early as a result. And as a result of early marriage, because their health because of their bodies have not fully developed, these issues with maternity arise. Hindered physical development. Now, this is related to early marriages again. So, 10 to 19 years of age, which is usually the adolescent age, this is the prime period during which bodies of individuals, whether it is male or female, they develop. Now their heights would increase around this adolescent age, they will gain weight, and even their reproductive organs will attain their full growth. What happens when girls are married early? Say, for example, a child of 15 years of age is married at the age of 15, and she attains pregnancy at the age of 16. Her reproductive organs have not fully developed at such a young age. Due to this, there are consequences that are faced by these women, that which we are talking about right now. So if a girl child whose reproductive organs have not developed fully and she becomes pregnant, because her uterus probably is not able to sustain the weight of the child that she's going to give birth to, problems related to pregnancy and maternity are likely to arise. So we need to provide full physical development of the girl child, and then only get them married as a society. The third issue that we can talk about is prevalence of socio-cultural determinants of early marriage. Again, this problem is related to early marriage. We have a lot of practices prevailing in our society. To a large extent, they have been removed, but still, as I talked about before, in rural areas and in remote regions, these practices still exist. So there are practices like Petu, the Udal Kavivaha in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and practice of Gona in Rajasthan. There's a practice of Gona. What happens in these practices are that children are married early. Again, they are married early, so they attain pregnancy early, and therefore all these issues related to maternal health arise. What are the solutions for this? This is not a very hard to decode the solution for this. The primary solution that there is to avoid maternal mortality that people can look forward to is avoid early marriages. Avoid marriages till the girl child has attained minimum age of marriage, at least 18, and even then, people should wait to get the girl married. So that will be the primary solution that the Indian society can adopt to provide to prevent these maternal issues. Secondly, delay the age of conception. So again, because the issues are related to maternal health, the age of conception should be delayed. How this can be done is, one example is that marriages can be made compulsorily registrable. So right now, currently, the law in India says that it is optional for the parties to get their marriage registered under the Hindu Marriage Act. The husband and wife, if they wish, then they can get their marriage registered under Section 8 of Hindu Marriage Act. Now, if the government makes this compulsory as a policy decision, what benefits that we can get out of it is that every marriage that gets registered, especially the marriage in which the husband and wife are really young to take decisions regarding family planning, regarding family care, a certain form of consultation can be provided to them. So government can form a unit in the department to provide safe sex guidelines, to support women during pregnancy, to provide information about family planning to these young couples. This can happen only when details of these marriages can reach the government, and this will happen when registration is made compulsory. Another way in which this issue can be avoided is by making concerted efforts to keep girls in schools for longer and enabling them to complete higher education and vocational training. Again, this is the way to avoid early marriage of girls and to keep them in school, to provide them training, to provide them education, so that firstly, the marriage is delayed, and secondly, that women are empowered. So when women are empowered, they can take decisions for themselves. They can take decisions regarding family planning and family care, which which is essential for family planning in all types of societies. And lastly, as the adage goes, as the saying goes, that you educate a woman, you can educate the entire family. India as a society should stick by it. So we should educate the girls so that the entire family can be educated and we can move towards a progressive society. Now, the news and flash section. World Nature Conservation Day, 28th July, is celebrated as World Nature Conservation Day. It is an international day that, because it's a World Nature Conservation Day, it's celebrated internationally. Main aim is to raise awareness about protecting nature and conserving our natural resources. Now, Hurricane Hannah. Hurricane. This is hurricane. This made a landfall on Padre Island, which is about 60 miles north of U.S.-Mexico border. Now, Hurricane Hannah strengthened from a tropical storm to a Category 1 hurricane, becoming first hurricane to hit southern coastal regions of Texas. Now, this is a hurricane that we're talking about, which hit U.S.-Mexico which hit near U.S.-Mexico border. You can remember the names, as this will be important. All these news items will be important from your preliminary point of view, preliminary exam point of view. The Mosam app. The Ministry of Earth Sciences launched a mobile application called Mosam for the Indian Meteorological Department. Now, what this Mosam app will do it will communicate the weather information and forecast to the general public. So this app will be available for general public for providing weather related information. Again, this will be useful for your preliminary exam point of view, so you can remember the name of this particular app that the government has launched. Clones of 47 banned Chinese apps. The Information and Technology Ministry banned 47 apps, which are clones or variants of Chinese-linked 59 apps earlier banned in June. So we all know that recently government banned 59 Chinese-linked apps, which included apps like Sheen and Cam Scanner, etc. Now, there were certain clones that were prevailing in Indian technology which the government recently banned to avoid their links with the Chinese apps which are banned. Kashmir saffron. The central government issued certification of geographical indication for saffron grown in Kashmir Valley. Now, GI tags, which are geographical indication tags, are given to certain category of goods to mark that they are prevalent in a particular area, and to in a certain sense commemorate these goods. So saffron, which is grown in Kashmir Valley, it's given a geographical indication tag. Now this type of information again is very important from your preliminary point of view. So remember which saffron in Kashmir. Questions can be asked like, in Kashmir Valley, what was given geographical indication tag by the central government recently. So you can remember this is the saffron in Kashmir Valley, which was given GI tag. With the GI tag, Kashmir saffron will acquire more prominence in the export market, and it will help farmers get better remunerative prices. So these are the advantages that that one gets if GI tag is given to a particular good. Thank you. This was all for today. Stay tuned to LawSikho for more such news analysis sessions, and good luck for preparation to everybody.